He never looked at me, not once. 5 years of silence, spilled coffee, and dusting around a photo of a woman who looked exactly like me. Then, one night, a letter slid from his drawer, and with it, everything I knew about my life unraveled. I wasn't part of the morning meetings. I wasn't listed in the building directory. I didn't have a staff badge that beeped dramatically when I walked through the doors. I had a mop, a name tag that said Eva, and a master key to secrets no one knew they were leaving behind. Every night at exactly 11:03 p.m., I'd swipe into the penthouse floor of Isamu Global Holdings, the financial heartbeat of a multi-billion-dollar empire, and arguably the coldest stretch of carpeted power on the East Coast. It was run by one man, Dae Isamu, Asian American, 45. Legs crossed with military precision even when no one was watching. To employees, he was Mr. Isamu. To journalists, the Ice King. To anyone who crossed him, a cautionary tale told in sealed subpoenas and offshore silence. To me, he was just the guy whose desk I've polished more times than I've heard him speak. And yet, under that glass surface, next to his imported pen set and untouched Scotch decanter, always sat one simple photo. A woman, wavy hair, soft eyes, a dignity so quiet it echoed louder than steel. She looked like me, and for 5 years I tried to ignore it. 5 years of being the stray in his glass castle, scrubbing, sweeping, unseen. So quiet I believed I was born for background noise. Looking at that face felt like opening a wound I couldn't locate. But that night, that was the night everything changed. It started with a drawer. It ended with the truth. I wasn't snooping. Let that go on record. Don't me in the comments about privacy. I wasn't trying to dig through the man's life like it was Reddit drama. But that drawer, it was cracked open. Barely. Like whatever was shoved inside had tried, and failed, to stay hidden. I reached down, intending to push it shut. But the letter slipped out instead, straight onto the floor. Cream paper, wax seal, handwriting that curled like it had been written by someone trembling with either regret or rage. And then, my heartbeat jumped. Because the name on the envelope? Dae. Just Dae. Like someone who'd known him before he was the Ice King. Someone who didn't bow when they said it. I hesitated. One glance up. He wasn't there. His private elevator was long gone, delivering him to wherever CEOs go to brood over their billions and count yachts instead of sheep. So I opened the letter, and the world I thought I knew shattered like a dropped wine glass. Dae. If you're reading this, you finally let yourself look. Each word burned. Each line felt like I was peeking into a life not mine, and yet entirely mine. Her name was Hannah. She spoke about the baby girl you gave up. She mentioned my name. She said I had his eyes. She knew about the thunder in my laugh. And beneath it all was something more terrifying than hatred. Love. Love twisted by fear. Love that walked away, thinking it was protecting. My knees buckled. My fingers shook. And somewhere inside that polished man, I knew he had broken too. I had to ask, do you think a parent can truly walk away from their child out of love? Or is that just a version of cowardice dressed in good intentions? Drop your opinion in the comments. Let them argue over the best-looking parent. I'm over here holding the receipts. The elevator dinged. Not the soft, polite chime of the staff lifts. This was the deep, resonant hum of his private car, one I'd only ever heard when he arrived at 7 a.m. sharp or left at 10:59 p.m. on the dot. I froze. The letter crumpled in my fist like a guilty secret. The door slid open, and there he was. Not in the tailored charcoal suit that made him look like a statue carved from money. Not with the crisp white shirt and tie that smelled like cedar and ambition. He wore a black turtleneck, its collar askew. His hair, usually combed so neat it looked painted, was ruffled at the temples, and his eyes, those cold, dark eyes that never saw me, were red. Puffy, like he'd been pressing his palms to them in the elevator, trying to hold back something he'd buried for 25 years. He didn't yell, didn't reach for the security button under his desk, didn't even pretend I wasn't there. He just stepped out, shut the elevator door, and walked to the desk. His shoes made no sound on the rug that cost more than my childhood home. When he spoke, his voice was raw. Sandpaper. "You've been here 5 years." It wasn't a question, it was a fact. The kind of fact you memorize when you've been watching someone from the shadows as long as he'd been watching me. I stood. My knees ached. The letter still burned in my hand. "And you've been alone for 23, I said. The words hung between us, thick as the smog outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lights blazed, thousands of tiny suns for people who didn't carry their ghosts to work every day. Dae stared at me. For the first time, he really stared. Not at the cleaner, not at the shadow, at me. His gaze flicked to the letter in my hand, then to the photo on his desk, Hana's face glowing under the desk lamp. "I didn't mean for you to find it," he said. It was almost a whisper. "I kept the drawer locked. I swear." "Locked things have a way of breaking open," I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. "Like secrets, like people." He flinched. That was the first climax, wasn't it? Not a gun, not a scream, just a man flinching when someone finally said the quiet part out loud. He turned away, but not before I saw the tear slide down his cheek. It left a shiny trail in the faint light, like a crack in marble. "I thought if I kept you invisible," he said, staring at the skyline, "you'd never become part of this." He gestured vaguely at the desk, the floor, the empire outside. The mess, the blood, the things I did to keep this company alive. I thought of the corporate finds in his trash, the men in black suits who lingered by the elevator, their eyes like chips of ice, the way he never smiled. "You think invisibility is safety?" I asked. I set the letter down on his desk, next to Hana's photo. "I've been invisible my whole life. It's not safe, it's just lonely." Dae didn't argue. He didn't try to spin it like a PR disaster. Instead, he reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, right over his heart. He pulled out a second envelope. This one wasn't crisp parchment. It was yellowed, dog-eared, tied with a ribbon that had once been bright red but was now the color of dried blood. "Open it," he said. My hands felt numb, but I obeyed. Inside was a birth certificate. Name, Eva Emerson. Born June 14, 1999. Mother, Dae Isamu. Father, Dae Isamu. Seeing my name printed there, officially, irrevocably linked to his, felt like the floor had dropped out from under the building. But it was what was written underneath in red ink that stopped my heart. A handwritten note scrawled in the margins of the legal document. "I gave her to the agency because I thought if she was raised by strangers, she'd never know what a monster I was." I looked up. The silence in the room was deafening. "A monster?" I asked, my voice trembling. He looked at his reflection in the window again, refusing to meet my eyes. "Do you know how I got this office, Eva? Do you know what hostile takeover means in my world? It doesn't mean lawyers. It means silence. It means making problems disappear." He turned to me, his face a mask of agony. "Hana was the light. I was the shadow. When she died, I knew I would consume you too. I thought giving you away was the only way to keep the light in you from going out." He waited for me to scream, to throw the vase, to storm out. but I didn't. I've spent 5 years cleaning up messes. I know the difference between a stain and a scar. I took a step closer. You didn't give me up because you didn't love me, I said softly. He flinched again. You gave me up, I continued, because you were too scared to be loved. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and the mask shattered completely. The CEO was gone. The mafia boss was gone. There was just a father, terrified that his touch would ruin the only good thing he'd ever made. The air in the room shifted. The tension didn't break. It transformed. Dae reached into his pocket one last time. I have one more thing, he said. He placed a small brass key on the desk. It wasn't a modern keycard or a biometric fob. It was old-fashioned, heavy. This is for my house, he said, in Kyoto. I blinked, confused. Kyoto? Why? A small, sad smile touched his lips, the first time I'd ever seen him smile in 5 years. Because of the tree, he whispered. The tree? When you were 7, he said, his voice gaining a strange, soft strength. You drew a picture on your foster mother's fridge, a big pink cherry blossom tree. You called it Dad's tree. My blood ran cold. How? I stepped back. How could you possibly know that? I never told anyone that name. He stepped around the desk. For the first time, he closed the distance between us. I hired a private investigator the day I signed the adoption papers, he confessed. I received a report every month for 25 years. He recited it like a prayer. I know you won the spelling bee in 4th grade on the word resilience. I know you painted murals in homeless shelters when you were 18 because you said walls shouldn't be gray. I know you cry every time you see a little girl with braids because it reminds you of the sister you never had. He took a breath. I thought if I kept you invisible, you'd be safe. I thought watching from the dark was enough. I looked down at the key, then at the letter, then at the man who had loved me from a distance so great it felt like abandonment. I've been cleaning your office for 5 years, I said slowly, because I thought you were the villain of my story. I folded the letter. I picked up the key. It was warm. But you're not the villain, Dae. I untied my apron, the one with the Eva name tag that felt like a prison uniform. I folded it neatly and placed it on the desk, right on top of the quarterly earnings report. Where are you going? He asked, panic flashing in his eyes. I walked to the door, the main door, not the service entrance. I paused and looked back. Home, I said. He looked like he might collapse. Then I smiled. It was my mother's smile. I knew that now. And tomorrow? I said. I'll be cleaning your house, the one with the tree. His eyes widened. But Eva, and Dae? I added, my hand on the brass handle. I expect a raise, and back pay for 25 years of missed allowances. The twist wasn't just that I was his daughter. The twist was that the cleaner was never just cleaning. I was auditing, and I had just decided to take over the family business. The next morning, I didn't clock in through the service entrance. I walked through the main lobby in a thrifted blazer, tailored to fit like it cost a month of his rent, my hair pulled back, and the brass Kyoto key looped on my keychain. The receptionist stared. The security guards blinked. No one stopped me. When I pushed open the 78th floor office door, Dae was already there. He was back in his suit, but it hung looser, like he'd finally let his shoulders drop. He stared at the desk, where my folded cleaner's apron sat next to Hana's photo, like it was a bridge between 2 lives. I didn't rush. I walked over, pulled a small potted cactus, the kind with tiny pink flowers, from my bag, and set it where the dead orchid used to rot. Then I stuck a neon sticky note to his monitor. Dae leaned in to read it. His lips twitched into a smile. Real, unguarded, the kind that crinkled the corners of his eyes. P.S. You still owe me a raise and a hug. Your daughter, who now owns 51% of your stock. P.P.S. The cactus has sass. Like me. Don't kill it. You own 51%? He asked, looking up, voice light for the first time. I shrugged. Hana left a will. She split her shares between us. I found it in a safety deposit box last year. I just didn't know who to give them to. The words hung soft, no longer sharp with anger. Dae reached into that same desk drawer, the one that had held all the secrets, and pulled out a small silver locket. He flipped it open. Inside was a tiny photo of Hana, grinning like she'd just pulled a prank, and a scrap of paper with my 7-year-old crayon drawing of the cherry tree. She made me keep this, he said, holding it out. Said if I ever lost my way, it would bring me back. I took the locket. It was warm, like it had been tucked in his pocket for 25 years. Then he stepped forward. Slowly, carefully, like he was afraid I'd flinch. He pulled me into a hug. It was awkward at first, stiff, like he'd forgotten how to touch someone gently. But then he relaxed, and I could feel his heart beating fast against mine, like a bird finally free from a cage. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a shadow. When we pulled back, he nodded at the window. The city was waking up, thousands of messy, loud, alive lives, stretching to the horizon. Kyoto? I asked. Next week, he said. We'll plant a new cherry tree, together. I smiled. We walked out of the office together. Him, the CEO who'd stopped hiding from his heart. Me, the cleaner who'd found her place in the world. The security guards held the door. The receptionist waved. The elevator dinged. This time we stepped in together. And for the first time, the 78th floor didn't feel cold. Sometimes the messes we clean up aren't just dust or spilled coffee. They're the secrets we bury, the love we're too scared to hold. Eva didn't just find a letter. She found a father who'd been hiding in plain sight, and a family she didn't know she was fighting for. What's a mess in your life that turned out to be something worth holding on to? Drop it in the comments. Let's celebrate the things we almost cleaned away.